She noticed the girl again, the same torn yellow dress, the same matted hair falling over hollow cheeks, the same way she sat beneath the jacaranda tree across from the food stall, knees pulled to her chest, watching the world pass by with eyes that had forgotten how to hope. Mama Yetunde ladled hot jollof rice into a styrofoam container, her heart squeezing the way it did every morning when she spotted that small, broken figure in the shadows. The girl couldn't have been more than 7 years old, but she carried herself like someone who had lived 1,000 painful lives. What would you do in this situation? Comment where you're watching from. Another plate for the street child? Her assistant Folake asked with barely concealed disapproval. Mama, that's the 5th time this week. We're not running a charity. Yetunde ignored her, adding an extra scoop of rice and 2 pieces of fried plantain. Her food stall on Balogan Street in Lagos had been her lifeline for 3 years, ever since her husband died and left her with nothing but debts and dreams. Every naira counted, but something about this child pulled at the deepest part of her soul. Go and give this to her, Yetunde said, handing the container to Folake. You go. I'm not touching that dirty thing. Yetunde's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She wiped her hands on her wrapper and crossed the dusty street, navigating between Okadas and Danfos honking their way through the morning chaos. The girl looked up as Yetunde approached, and for a moment, something flickered in those dead eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition of kindness in a world that had shown her none. Good morning, my dear, Yetunde said softly, kneeling despite the red dust that would stain her wrapper. I brought you breakfast. The girl stared at the food but didn't reach for it. It's okay. It's for you. You can eat it. Slowly, painfully slowly, small fingers emerged from beneath the torn fabric and took the container. The girl didn't say thank you. She didn't say anything. She just opened the lid and began eating with the desperate urgency of someone who didn't know when the next meal would come. Yetunde's throat burned with unshed tears. What's your name, sweetheart? The girl chewed, swallowed, and whispered so quietly Yetunde almost missed it. Zainab. Zainab. That's a beautiful name. Yetunde smiled. Where is your family? The child's face closed like a door slamming shut. She turned away and continued eating. Yetunde didn't push. She'd seen that look before. In the eyes of women who'd been broken by men, by poverty, by Lagos itself, some wounds were too deep for words. I'm here every morning, Yetunde said, standing and brushing dust from her knees. If you're hungry, you come to me, okay? Zainab didn't respond, but Yetunde saw her shoulders relax just a fraction. Hello, beautiful souls. This is Tales by AJ, bringing you another powerful story of hope, kindness, and destiny. If this story touches your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our emotional journeys. Now let me ask you, would you help a stranger every day, even when you're barely surviving yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. That evening, as Yetunde counted her meager earnings, Folake couldn't hold her tongue any longer. Mama, you gave away 4 plates today. 4! That's almost 2,000 naira gone. For what? A street rat who probably has parents somewhere getting high on cheap gin? Watch your mouth, Yetunde snapped, surprising herself with the force of her anger. That child is not a rat. She's a human being. A human being whose family abandoned her, Folake shot back. Why should we suffer because her people are useless? Yetunde's hands trembled as she folded the naira notes. Folake was right, in a way. Business had been getting harder. Her landlord was threatening to increase her stall rent. Her daughter's school fees were due next month. She was one emergency away from losing everything. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Zainab's face. Those haunted eyes. That desperate hunger. She saw herself, too. 20 years ago, pregnant and alone, sitting outside a stranger's house in Ibadan, praying for mercy. An old woman had given her bread and water, had let her sleep on the veranda, had saved her life without even knowing it. She's just a child, Yetunde whispered. Someone's daughter. The pattern continued. Every morning, Zainab appeared beneath the jacaranda tree. Every morning, Yetunde fed her. The girl never smiled, never spoke more than a word or two, but she came. That was enough. On the 5th day, something changed. Yetunde was preparing the morning's jollof rice when she heard shouting. She looked up to see a well-dressed man standing near the tree, yelling at Zainab. I told you to stay away from this area. You're scaring customers. Get out! Zainab scrambled to her feet, clutching her torn dress, eyes wide with terror. The man raised his hand. Don't you dare touch her! Yetunde's voice cut through the morning air like a machete. She stormed across the street, her wrapper flying behind her, pure maternal fury blazing in her chest. The man turned, startled. He was middle-aged, pot-bellied, wearing a too-tight shirt and an expression of entitled disgust. "This is not your business, woman. This dirty thing is bad for business. My shop is right there, and customers complain about the smell." "She's a child, not a thing!" Yetunde positioned herself between him and Zainab. "If you touch her, I will make sure every person on this street knows what kind of man you are." The man's face twisted with rage, but he saw the small crowd beginning to gather. In Lagos, public shame was a weapon sharper than any knife. "Keep your street rat then," he spat, backing away. "But don't let her near my shop." As he stormed off, Yetunde turned to Zainab. The girl was shaking, tears streaming down her dirty face. Without thinking, Yetunde pulled her into her arms. "It's okay, my darling. It's okay. I won't let anyone hurt you." For the first time, Zainab didn't pull away. She collapsed into Yetunde's embrace and sobbed like her heart was shattering into a million pieces. Yetunde held her, rocking her gently, whispering comfort, and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. That afternoon, Yetunde did something she'd sworn she'd never do. She took Zainab home. Her one-room apartment in Mushin was barely big enough for herself and her daughter Kemi, but looking at Zainab's tear-stained face, Yetunde couldn't leave her on the streets another night. "Mama? Who is this?" Kemi asked when they arrived, her 12-year-old face scrunched with confusion. "This is Zainab. She'll be staying with us for a while." "Where? We don't even have space for our own things." "We'll make space." Kemi's eyes narrowed with the cruel clarity of adolescence. "Is she going to eat our food too? We barely have enough as it is." "Kemi!" Yetunde's voice was sharp. "I raised you better than this." Her daughter fell silent, but resentment simmered in her eyes. That night, Yetunde bathed Zainab for the first time. The water ran dark brown with dirt and grime. Beneath the filth, the child's skin was covered in scars, old bruises, marks that told stories Yetunde didn't want to imagine. "Who did this to you?" she whispered, her hands gentle on the small, fragile body. Zainab said nothing. She never did. After the bath, dressed in one of Kemi's old nightgowns, Zainab looked different. Her face, clean and framed by freshly washed hair, was delicate, almost aristocratic. Her eyes, though still haunted, held a strange depth, an intelligence that didn't match her circumstances. "Who are you really?" Yetunde wondered, brushing the girl's damp hair. "Where did you come from?" But she didn't ask. Some answers came in their own time. Across the city, in a mansion in Ikoyi, a man sat in his study, staring at a photograph. Bilal Okonkwo hadn't slept properly in 3 years. Not since the day his daughter vanished from the garden while he was inside, taking a business call. Not since his world collapsed into an endless nightmare of police reports, private investigators, and cruel hope. His wife had left him 6 months after. "I can't look at you without seeing her," she'd said, "without blaming you." He blamed himself, too. Every lead had turned cold. Every tip had led nowhere. His little Zainab, his princess, his reason for living, was gone. Probably dead, the police had finally admitted. Probably sold, or worse. But Bilal refused to believe it. Somewhere in this massive, chaotic city, his daughter was alive. He felt it in his bones. He would find her. He had to. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Will Yetunde discover Zainab's true identity? Will the billionaire father ever find his lost daughter? Comment below. The nightmare came again that night. Zainab woke up screaming, her small body drenched in sweat, thrashing against invisible hands. Yetunde rushed from her mat on the floor and gathered the girl into her arms, holding her tight while she fought and sobbed. "Shh, my darling. You're safe. You're safe now." "No, let me go. Please, please let me go." Zainab's voice was raw with terror, her eyes open but seeing something else, somewhere else. Kemi sat up on the bed they now shared, annoyance flickering across her face before quickly hiding it. This was the 3rd night in a row. Yetunde rocked Zainab gently, humming an old Yoruba lullaby her own mother had sung to her. Slowly, painfully slowly, the girl's breathing steadied, her eyes focused. She saw Yetunde's face and collapsed against her chest. "I'm sorry," Zainab whispered. "I'm sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for, my love, nothing at all." But as Yetunde held her, feeling the rapid beating of that small heart, she wondered what horrors this child had survived, and whether love alone would be enough to heal them. 2 weeks passed. Zainab remained silent most of the time, but small changes began to appear. She started eating without the desperate urgency of before. She stopped flinching every time someone raised their voice on the street. She even smiled once, a tiny flicker that vanished as quickly as it came, when Yetunde brought home a small purple flower from the market. The food stall struggled. With an extra mouth to feed and less time to prepare in the mornings, Yetunde's profits shrank. She started waking at 4 instead of 5, her body aching with exhaustion just to keep up. Folake noticed everything. "You're killing yourself for a child who's not even yours," she said one morning, watching Yetunde's hands shake as she chopped vegetables. "When was the last time you slept properly?" "I sleep fine." "You're lying. I can see it in your face." Folake lowered her voice. "Mama, I'm not heartless, but you have your own daughter to think about. Kemi needs school fees, needs clothes, needs a future. What happens when you can't pay? When the landlord throws you out? What happens to all of you then?" The words hit like stones because they were true. Yetunde had been avoiding the calculations in her head, the numbers that didn't add up, the impossible mathematics of survival. "God will provide," she said weakly. "God helps those who help themselves," Folake countered. "Take the girl to social welfare. Let the government handle her. That's what they're there for. So they can throw her in some overcrowded orphanage where she'll be abused, where she'll disappear into the system and never be found?" Yetunde's voice rose. "No, I won't do that to her." "Then what will you do? Love her into starvation?" Yetunde had no answer. That afternoon, as the lunch rush died down, a black Range Rover pulled up to the stall. In this part of Lagos, luxury cars were rare enough to draw attention. People stopped and stared. A man stepped out, tall and distinguished, wearing an expensive agbada despite the heat. His face was handsome but lined with deep sorrow, as though grief had carved permanent marks into his features. Behind him came 2 men in dark suits, security. Yetunde's stomach clenched. Rich people meant trouble. They always did. "Good afternoon, madam," the man said, his voice cultured, gentle. "I'm looking for information about street children in this area." Yetunde's hands froze on the ladle she was holding. "I don't know anything about that." "Please." His eyes were desperate. "I'm not from the government. I'm not here to cause problems. I'm a father looking for my daughter. She's been missing for 3 years." Something in his voice made Yetunde look up. She saw the photograph he held out, a picture of a little girl with bright eyes and a beautiful smile, wearing an expensive dress and holding a teddy bear. The girl looked nothing like Zainab. This child was plump, happy, loved. Zainab was thin, haunted, scarred. "I'm sorry," Yetunde said softly. "I haven't seen her." The man's shoulders sagged. "If you do see any street children who might match her description, please call me." He handed her a business card. "There's a reward, 5 million naira for information that leads to finding her." Yetunde's breath caught. 5 million naira. That was more money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. The man's name on the card read, Bilal Okonkwo, CEO, Okonkwo Industries. "I will," she managed to say. "I'll keep my eyes open." As the Range Rover drove away, Folake appeared at her elbow, eyes gleaming. "Did you see that? 5 million naira. Mama, do you know what we could do with that money?" "He's looking for his daughter," Yetunde said quietly, tucking the card into her wrapper. "Not selling information." "Still, 5 million. Folake shook her head. "Some people have too much money and too many problems." That evening, Yetunde couldn't stop thinking about Bilal Okonkwo, about the devastation in his eyes, about what it meant to lose a child and spend 3 years searching with no hope. She thought about Zainab, who never spoke about her past, who screamed in her sleep, who flinched at loud noises and sudden movements. Could she have been kidnapped? Taken from a wealthy family? Yetunde pushed the thought away. Zainab looked nothing like the girl in the photograph. Besides, thousands of children went missing in Lagos every year. The chances were impossibly small. Still, that night, she studied Zainab's face more carefully. Beneath the scars and the malnutrition, beneath the fear and the dirt she'd been caked in when they first met, there was something refined about her features, something that didn't quite match the story of a common street child. "Zainab," Yetunde said gently as she braided the girl's hair. "Can you tell me about your family, about what happened before you were on the streets?" Zainab's whole body went rigid. "No." "It's okay, my love. You're safe now. No one can hurt you." "They can." Zainab's voice cracked with sudden intensity. "They can always hurt you. They hurt me before. They'll hurt me again." "Who, baby? Who hurt you?" But Zainab shut down completely, curling into a ball, refusing to speak another word. Yetunde held her until she fell asleep and wondered what kind of monsters had broken such a small, beautiful soul. Do you believe every child deserves a second chance? Do you believe kindness can heal even the deepest wounds? Share your thoughts below. The following week brought disaster. Yetunde's landlord appeared at the stall during the lunch rush, his face twisted with impatience. "Mama Yetunde, your rent is 2 months overdue. I've been patient, but my patience is finished. Mr. Taiwo, please, I just need 2 more weeks. Business has been slow, but 2 weeks?" He laughed harshly. "You've been saying that for 2 months. I have people willing to pay triple what you're paying. If you don't have the money by Friday, pack your things." "But where will I go? I have children." "That's not my problem. Friday, or you're out." He stormed off, leaving Yetunde shaking with fear and humiliation. The other vendors had heard everything. Some looked sympathetic, others looked satisfied to see someone else's misfortune. That night, Yetunde did something she swore she'd never do. She counted the money hidden in her old biscuit tin, the emergency fund she'd been building grain by grain for Kemi's secondary school. It wasn't enough. Not even close. Kemi watched from the bed, her face hard. "This is because of her, isn't it? Because you're feeding someone else's child while your own daughter suffers. Kemi, don't... It's true. We were struggling before, but we were managing. Now we're going to be homeless. And for what? For some dirty street girl who won't even talk. She's been through terrible things. So have we." Kemi's voice broke with angry tears. "My father died. We lost everything. But did anyone take us in? Did anyone feed us for free? No. We survived because you worked hard. But now you're throwing it all away." Yetunde wanted to argue, but the words dried up in her throat. Because some part of her, the part that worried about tomorrow, about next week, about next year, wondered if Kemi was right. Zainab sat in the corner, silent and small, watching the argument with those old, knowing eyes. Friday came too quickly. Yetunde arrived at the stall before dawn, hoping for a miracle. The morning was busy, thank God. She sold out of jollof rice by 9, made more, sold out again by noon. But when she counted the money at the end of the day, it still wasn't enough. She was 40,000 naira short. Folek found her sitting on the stool behind the stall, head in her hands, silent tears streaming down her face. "Mama," she said quietly, "there might be a way." Yetunde looked up. That man, the billionaire looking for his daughter, 5 million naira for information. Folek's eyes were sharp with calculation. Zainab has been on the streets for a long time. She might have seen something, heard something. Even if she's not his daughter, maybe she knows who took her. Maybe she saw something. She's just a child. She doesn't know anything. How do you know? You said she won't talk about her past. Maybe there's a reason. Folek leaned closer. Even if we just call him, tell him we have a street child who might have information, maybe he'll pay something. Maybe just 1 million. Maybe 500,000. It would change your life, Mama. You could pay your rent, pay Kemi's school fees, keep the stall. You could actually survive. Yetunde's hands trembled. The business card was still in her wrapper, worn soft from being touched too many times. 5 million naira. Security, safety, a future. All she had to do was make one phone call. "Think about it," Folek said softly. "Think about Kemi. Think about yourself. You can't save everyone, Mama. Sometimes you have to choose." That night, Yetunde couldn't sleep. She lay on her mat, listening to Zainab's soft breathing, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her chest. She thought about Bilal Okonkwo's devastated face, about a father who had spent 3 years searching for his lost child. She thought about her own daughter, angry and afraid, watching their life crumble. She thought about Zainab, who trusted her, who was finally beginning to heal. At 3 in the morning, Yetunde made her decision. She pulled out her phone and the worn business card. Her hands shook as she typed the number. But just as her finger hovered over the call button, Zainab screamed. Another nightmare, worse than before. Yetunde dropped the phone and rushed to her, gathering the thrashing child into her arms. "The bad man!" Zainab sobbed, her eyes wild with terror. "The bad man is coming. He's coming to take me back. Please don't let him take me. Please, Mama, please, Mama." She'd called her Mama. Yetunde's heart shattered and rebuilt itself in the same moment. She held Zainab tighter, rocking her, whispering fierce promises into her hair. "No one will take you. No one. I promise you, my darling. I promise." And in that moment, looking at the phone on the floor, at the number she'd almost called, Yetunde knew she could never make that call. Some things were more valuable than money. Some bonds were worth more than survival. The eviction notice came on Monday morning. Yetunde stared at the paper taped to her stall, the official government stamp glaring at her like an accusation. She had until the end of the week to pay the full amount owed or vacate the premises. Her hands trembled as she pulled it down, crumpling it into her wrapper before anyone could see. But of course they'd already seen. Lagos had no secrets. By noon, every vendor on Balogan Street would know that Mama Yetunde was finished. "Mama, what are we going to do?" Folak asked, her voice unusually soft. Yetunde had no answer. She'd spent the last 3 days trying to borrow money from everyone she knew. Her sister in Ibadan said she had nothing to spare. Her old church members gave what they could, but it amounted to less than 10,000 naira. The bank laughed when she asked for a loan with no collateral. She was out of options. That afternoon, business was slow. People seemed to sense failure the way vultures sense death. They took their money elsewhere, to vendors whose futures weren't hanging by a thread. Zainab sat quietly near the stall, drawing patterns in the dust with a stick. She'd been quieter than usual since the nightmare, barely eating, barely speaking. But she stayed close to Yetunde, as if afraid that distance would make her disappear. Kemi hadn't spoken to Yetunde in 3 days. The silence in their one-room apartment was heavier than any argument. On Wednesday evening, Yetunde was closing up when a sleek Mercedes pulled up to the curb. A woman stepped out, elegant and beautiful, wearing a designer wrapper and gold jewelry that probably cost more than Yetunde's entire life. "Are you Mama Yetunde?" the woman asked, her voice carrying the crisp accent of the truly wealthy. "Yes, Ma." Yetunde's stomach knotted with anxiety. Rich people never brought good news to poor people. "My name is Ndidi Okonkwo. I'm Bilal Okonkwo's sister." She glanced around the street with barely concealed distaste. "My brother told me he came here looking for information about missing children." Yetunde's heart began to race. "Yes, Ma, he did. Has anything changed? Have you seen or heard anything that might help us?" This was it. The moment. The choice. Yetunde thought about Zainab, sitting just a few feet away, hidden behind the stall. About the nightmares. About the scars. About the way she'd called her Mama. "No, Ma," Yetunde heard herself say. "I'm sorry, I haven't seen anything." Ndidi's face hardened with disappointment. "I see. Well, if you do, there's still a reward. My brother is desperate. He'll pay anything for information." "I understand, Ma." As Ndidi turned to leave, she paused and looked back. "You have children?" "Yes, Ma. 2 daughters." "Then you understand what it means to lose one. The hole it leaves in your heart that nothing can fill." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "My brother is dying slowly, piece by piece. Every day that passes without his daughter is another day he loses himself. If you see anything at all, please call. You'd be saving more than one life." She got back into her Mercedes and drove away, leaving Yetunde standing in the dust, shame burning in her chest. That night, Yetunde made jollof rice with the last of her provisions. There wasn't much, but she divided it equally between 3 plates. Kemi stared at her portion with disgust. "This is what we've come to, eating scraps like beggars." "It's food. Be grateful." "Grateful?" Kemi's voice rose. "For what? For watching you destroy our lives for a stranger?" "Kemi." "Please, no, I'm tired of pretending this is okay." Kemi stood up, tears streaming down her face. "That woman today, the rich one, she was talking about the billionaire, wasn't she? The one looking for his daughter, the one offering 5 million naira." Yetunde said nothing. "I saw the card, Mama. I saw it in your wrapper. I know you have his number." Kemi's voice cracked. "Why won't you call? Even if Zainab doesn't know anything, he might pay just to talk to someone who's seen street children. It's not wrong to ask for help." "It's not about right or wrong. Then what is it about? Because from where I'm standing, you're choosing her over me, over your own daughter." The words hung in the air like poison. Zainab, who had been eating silently in the corner, slowly put down her plate and stood up. "I'll go," she whispered. Both Yetunde and Kemi turned to look at her. "I'll leave," Zainab said, her voice trembling but determined. "I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want you to fight because of me." "No," Yetunde said firmly, "but she's right. You have your own family. I'm nobody. I'm nothing." Yetunde crossed the room in 3 strides and knelt before Zainab, taking her small face in both hands. "You listen to me. You are not nothing. You are a child of God, and you are precious, and you are loved. Do you hear me? You are loved." Zainab's face crumpled. "But you're suffering because of me." "We're suffering because life is hard, not because of you, never because of you." Behind them, Kemi made a sound of disgust and stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Yetunde held Zainab as she cried, and wondered how much more her family could endure before everything fell apart. "Would you sacrifice everything for a child that isn't yours? Would you choose compassion over survival? Tell us what you think in the comments. Friday arrived like an executioner. Yetunde went to the stall knowing it would be her last day. She'd already started packing her pots and pans, her spices and utensils, everything that had built her small business from nothing. Mr. Taiwo, the landlord, would come at 5 o'clock. If she didn't have the money, he'd throw her things into the street and rent the space to someone else by Monday. The morning dragged like a funeral procession. A few loyal customers came, offering sympathetic smiles and small purchases that wouldn't save her but showed they cared. At noon, something unexpected happened. Bilal Okonkwo returned. He stepped out of his Range Rover looking even more haggard than before, his expensive clothes hanging loose on a frame that had clearly lost weight. His eyes were red-rimmed, desperate. "Please," he said, approaching Yetunde's stall with his hands clasped like a beggar. "I know I was here before. I know you said you haven't seen anything, but I'm begging you, look at this picture again." He held out his phone, and this time there were multiple photos. His daughter at different ages, as a baby, as a toddler, at 4, 5, 6 years old. And in one photo, Yetunde's heart stopped. The girl was about 7 years old, thinner than in the earlier pictures, her face showing the beginning of sadness. But it was her eyes that made Yetunde's blood run cold. Those eyes, deep, knowing, ancient with pain. She'd seen those exact eyes every day for the past 3 weeks. "Her name is Zainab," Bilal continued, his voice breaking. "She was 7 when she was taken from my garden. Someone distracted the security guard, someone who knew our routine. The police think it was an inside job, someone I trusted who sold my daughter to traffickers." Zainab, the same name, 7 years old, the same age. Yetunde's hands began to shake. "She had a small birthmark," Bilal continued, touching his left shoulder. "Right here, shaped like a crescent moon, and a scar on her right knee from when she fell off her bicycle when she was 5. The room spun. Yetunde had seen both those marks, when she'd bathed Zainab that first night. A crescent-shaped birthmark on her left shoulder, a scar on her right knee. "Dear God, if you see her," Bilal whispered, tears streaming down his face without shame. "If you see any child who might be her, please, please tell me. I don't care about the reward anymore. I just want my daughter back. I just want to tell her I'm sorry, that I love her, that I never stopped looking." Yetunde's throat closed. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. This man's daughter was sleeping in her one-room apartment, was drawing pictures in the dust outside her stall, was calling her mama in the middle of nightmares. This man's 5 million naira reward could save her business, her home, her daughter's future. All she had to do was tell the truth. Yetunde started, her voice cracking. Bilal leaned forward, hope flaring in his devastated eyes. "I haven't seen her," Yetunde finished, the lie tasting like ash in her mouth. "But I promise you, if I do, I'll call you immediately." The hope died. Bilal's shoulders sagged with familiar defeat. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for listening." He turned to leave, and Yetunde watched him go, this broken father searching for the daughter who was right here, right under his nose, and she said nothing. Why? Why couldn't she tell him? Because Zainab had screamed about a bad man in her nightmares. Because she flinched at loud noises and sudden movements. Because someone had covered her small body with scars and bruises and terror. What if Bilal wasn't the good father he claimed to be? What if he was the monster Zainab was running from? What if Yetunde gave her back and she ended up somewhere worse? Or what if he was exactly what he seemed, a devastated father who'd lost everything, and Yetunde was keeping them apart for selfish reasons? For the love she'd grown to feel for a child who wasn't hers? At 5 o'clock, Mr. Taiwo arrived with 2 men carrying boxes. "Well?" he demanded. "Do you have my money?" Yetunde shook her head slowly. "No, sir, I don't." "Then start packing. You have 1 hour." Folek had already left, finding work at another stall. The other vendors pretended not to watch as Yetunde began dismantling 3 years of her life, packing everything into boxes and bags. Just as she was loading the last pot, a commotion erupted down the street. People were shouting, running. "Kidnappers! Kidnappers in a white bus!" Yetunde's blood turned to ice. She spun around, searching for Zainab. The girl had been sitting by the jacaranda tree just 10 minutes ago. She wasn't there anymore. "Zainab!" Yetunde screamed, abandoning her belongings and running toward the crowd. "Zainab!" People were pointing at a white bus speeding away, swerving through traffic. "They grabbed 2 children," someone shouted, "right off the street." "Did anyone see which children?" Yetunde grabbed the nearest person, her heart thundering with terror. "Did you see who they took?" One was that boy who sells pure water, and I think the other was that homeless girl, the one who's always around here. No, 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 no. Zainab! Yetunde screamed again, running down the street like a madwoman, searching every corner, every alley, praying it wasn't true. But deep in her soul, she knew. The girl she'd protected, fed, loved, and lied for was gone. And this time, Yetunde had no one to blame but herself. Yetunde ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out. She collapsed against a wall 3 blocks from Balogun Street. Gasping for air, her vision blurred with tears and panic. The white bus was long gone, swallowed by Lagos traffic, carrying Zainab into a nightmare that Yetunde knew too well. Girls who disappeared into those buses rarely came back, and when they did, they were never the same. "Mama, Mama, what's wrong?" A woman from the market grabbed her shoulders. "What happened?" "They took her," Yetunde sobbed. "The kidnappers took Zainab. I have to find her. I have to—" "You need to call the police." "The police won't do anything. You know they won't." Yetunde's voice cracked with desperation. "By the time they write their reports and ask their useless questions, she'll be gone forever." But even as she said it, Yetunde knew there was someone who would act. Someone with resources, connections, money, power. Someone who'd been searching for Zainab for 3 years. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone and the worn business card. This time, she didn't hesitate. She pressed call. The phone rang twice before a deep voice answered. Bilal Okonkwo speaking. "Mr. Okonkwo, this is Mama Yetunde, from Balogun Street. You came to my stall looking for your daughter." "Yes?" His voice sharpened with sudden attention. "Have you seen something?" "I lied to you." The words rushed out in a torrent of guilt and fear. "I lied to you, and now she's gone, and it's all my fault. Your daughter Zainab, she's been with me for 3 weeks. I've been feeding her, sheltering her, and I didn't tell you because I was afraid. And now kidnappers just took her in a white bus, and I don't know where they went. And please, please, you have to help me find her." Silence. Then, "What did you say?" "Your daughter has been living with me. She was homeless, on the streets, but I took her in. And today, just now, kidnappers grabbed her. Please, Mr. Okonkwo, I know you hate me. I know I should have told you sooner, but please help me find her. Please." "Where are you right now?" "Corner of Balogun and Oyetola Street." "Don't move. I'm coming." The line went dead. Bilal Okonkwo arrived in 12 minutes, which should have been impossible in Lagos traffic. His Range Rover screeched to a halt, and he jumped out before it fully stopped, his security team scrambling after him. Yetunde had never seen such raw intensity in a human face, hope and fury and terror all burning together. "Tell me everything," he commanded. "Now," Yetunde told him. About finding Zainab under the jacaranda tree, about feeding her, about the nightmares and the scars, about taking her home, about the birthmark and the scar on her knee. "Why didn't you tell me?" Bilal's voice was dangerously quiet. "Why didn't you call me immediately?" "Because she was terrified. Because she screamed about a bad man in her sleep. Because I didn't know if you were the one who hurt her or if you were truly looking for her." Yetunde's tears flowed freely. "I was wrong. I know I was wrong. But I was trying to protect her." Bilal's jaw clenched, but he nodded sharply. "The white bus. Which direction?" "Toward Oshodi. That's what people said." He was already on his phone, barking orders. "David, get me Police Commissioner Adeyemi on the line. Now. Then contact every checkpoint between here and Oshodi. White passenger bus. Kidnapping in progress, 2 children. Yes, I know what time it is. I don't care. Get it done." He turned to his security chief. "Emmanuel, pull traffic camera footage for this area in the last 30 minutes. I want that bus identified and tracked. Use every contact we have. Call the governor's office if you need to." Within minutes, Bilal had mobilized a network that Yetunde didn't know existed. Police units, private security firms, traffic authorities, even local area boys who knew every corner of Lagos. This was what money and power could do. This was what she could have accessed 3 weeks ago if she'd just told the truth. Do you believe in second chances? Do you think Yetunde did the right thing by protecting Zainab, or should she have called sooner? Share your thoughts below. They drove through Lagos like a military operation. Bilal's Range Rover in front, 2 security vehicles behind, all of them connected by phone and radio. Yetunde sat in the passenger seat, her heart hammering, praying harder than she'd ever prayed in her life. "Tell me about her," Bilal said suddenly, his eyes never leaving the road. "Tell me about my daughter. What is she like now?" Yetunde swallowed hard. "She's quiet, afraid. She has nightmares almost every night. But she's strong, Mr. Okonkwo. Stronger than any child should have to be." Does she remember me? She never said. She doesn't talk about her past at all. Bilal's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What did they do to her? The people who took her? I don't know. She has scars, old bruises. She flinches when people raise their voices. Yetunde's voice broke. Someone hurt her badly. Someone evil. I'll kill them. The words were spoken so calmly they were more terrifying than if he'd shouted. When I find whoever did this to my daughter, I will kill them with my own hands. Yetunde believed him. The call came 20 minutes later. Sir, we have the bus. Emmanuel's voice crackled through the speaker. Traffic cameras caught it heading toward Badagry Expressway. We have police units moving to intercept. I want that bus stopped, Bilal commanded. I don't care how. Stop it. They raced toward Badagry, Bilal's driver navigating through traffic with the skill of someone who'd done this before. Other cars blared their horns and cursed, but the Range Rover didn't slow down. Yetunde closed her eyes and saw Zainab's face. The way she'd looked that morning, drawing pictures in the dust. The way she'd smiled, just once, at the purple flower. The way she'd called her Mama. Please, God, please let her be okay. I'll do anything. Just let her be okay. They found the bus 20 kilometers outside Lagos, pulled over on the side of the expressway, surrounded by police vehicles. Bilal was out of the Range Rover before it fully stopped, running toward the bus with Yetunde right behind him. Sir, wait! A police officer tried to stop him. We're still securing the scene. My daughter is in there. Sir, the kidnappers are armed. But Bilal shoved past him, and Yetunde followed, her heart in her throat. The bus door was open. Inside, police officers were handcuffing 3 men, all of them rough-looking, their faces twisted with anger at being caught. And in the back of the bus, huddled together in terror, were 6 children. Yetunde's eyes scanned desperately. There, in the corner, a small figure in a torn yellow dress. Zainab! Yetunde screamed. The girl looked up, and when she saw Yetunde, her face crumpled. Mama! Yetunde ran down the aisle and dropped to her knees, pulling Zainab into her arms. The girl clung to her, sobbing, her small body shaking with relief and terror. I'm here, baby. I'm here. You're safe now. You're safe. Behind them, Bilal stood frozen in the aisle, staring at the girl in Yetunde's arms. His daughter. After 3 years of searching, of hoping, of dying inside piece by piece. She was real. She was alive. She was here. Zainab? His voice cracked on her name. The girl slowly turned her head, still clinging to Yetunde. When she saw Bilal, her eyes went wide with recognition and something else, something complicated. Papa? She whispered. Bilal's legs gave out. He fell to his knees in the middle of the bus, tears streaming down his face, his whole body shaking with sobs. My baby girl. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Zainab stared at him, confusion and memory warring on her small face. Then slowly, she reached out one trembling hand. Bilal took it like it was made of glass, pressing it to his wet cheek. I never stopped looking, he whispered. Not for 1 day. I never stopped. The reunion happened in stages, carefully, gently. At the police station, Zainab sat between Yetunde and Bilal, her hand gripping Yetunde's while her eyes stayed locked on her father's face, as if memorizing features she'd forgotten. The police questioned the kidnappers. Their story came out in bitter pieces. 3 years ago, they'd been hired by someone to take a child from the Okonkwo mansion. They were given the security schedule, the layout of the garden, everything they needed. They'd sold Zainab to a woman who ran a begging ring, who'd kept her locked in a room with other stolen children, forcing them to beg on the streets during the day, beating them if they didn't bring back enough money. 6 months ago, the woman had died. The children scattered. Zainab had been surviving on the streets ever since. Who hired you? Bilal demanded, his voice like steel. Who paid you to take my daughter? The men exchanged glances. Finally, one spoke. A woman. She said she worked for you, said the child wasn't yours anyway, that your wife had an affair, and you were too proud to admit it. She paid us 50,000 naira. Bilal's face went white. What was her name? She called herself Blessing. But I don't think that was her real name. Yetunde saw the recognition flash across Bilal's face. He knew who it was. She'll pay, he said quietly. I promise you, she'll pay for what she did. Later that night, in a private room at Bilal's mansion in Ikoyi, Zainab finally spoke. She sat on a massive bed in a beautiful room that used to be hers, wearing new clothes, her hair washed and braided, looking like a different child than the one who'd sat beneath the jacaranda tree. But her eyes were still the same, still haunted. I remember this room, she said softly, touching the pink curtains. I remember the teddy bear Papa gave me, the one with the blue ribbon. Bilal pulled the worn teddy bear from a drawer where he'd kept it for 3 years, and Zainab's face crumpled. She hugged it to her chest and cried. "I'm sorry, Papa," she sobbed. "I'm sorry I couldn't find my way home. I tried so hard, but I didn't know where to go. And the bad woman said you didn't want me anymore, that you were glad I was gone." "No!" Bilal gathered her into his arms. "No, my darling. I wanted you every single day. I looked for you everywhere. I never stopped loving you. Never." They held each other and cried, 3 years of grief and loss pouring out in healing tears. Yetunde stood in the doorway, watching, her own tears falling silently. This was right. This was what should have happened 3 weeks ago. But her heart was breaking anyway. The next morning, Bilal called Yetunde into his study. "I owe you everything," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved my daughter's life. You cared for her when no one else would. You protected her." "I should have called you sooner," Yetunde whispered. "I was selfish. I was afraid. And because of that, she was almost taken again. But she wasn't. Because of your love, she stayed in one place long enough for me to find her. Because of you, she learned to trust again." He paused. "The reward I promised, 5 million naira. It's yours." Yetunde's breath caught. 5 million naira. More money than she'd ever dreamed of. But looking at it now, it felt like blood money, like payment for something that should never have had a price. "I don't want it," she heard herself say. Bilal stared at her in shock. "What?" "I didn't help Zainab for money. I helped her because she needed help, because she was a child who was suffering." Yetunde's voice strengthened. "If you want to thank me, just let me see her sometimes. Let me know she's okay. That's all I need." Bilal studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, real warmth entering his eyes for the first time. "You're a remarkable woman, Mama Yetunde. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think will happen next? Will Zainab adjust to her old life? Will Yetunde and Bilal stay connected? Comment your predictions below. 3 months passed like a dream that Yetunde wasn't sure was real. The 5 million naira had appeared in her bank account despite her protests. Bilal had insisted, and when Yetunde tried to return it, he'd simply said, "Use it to help other children like Zainab. Use it to build something that matters." So she did. She paid her debts first. The landlord, the market women she'd borrowed from, everyone who'd shown her kindness when she was drowning. Then she renovated her food stall, expanded it, hired 3 women from the neighborhood who needed work. But the biggest change was the small shelter she opened behind the stall. Just 3 rooms, but enough to house 6 street children at a time. She fed them, clothed them, helped them find their families when possible, and gave them safety when it wasn't. She called it Zainab's place. Kemi had forgiven her, slowly, grudgingly, especially after Yetunde enrolled her in a better school and bought her the books and uniform she'd been dreaming of. Her daughter was learning that sometimes doing the right thing cost everything, but it was still worth doing. And Zainab visited every week. On a bright Saturday morning, a familiar Range Rover pulled up to the stall. Zainab jumped out before it fully stopped, running straight into Yetunde's arms. "Mama Yetunde!" She was smiling now, really smiling, her face fuller, healthier, her eyes holding light instead of shadows. "My darling girl!" Yetunde hugged her tight, breathing in the sweet smell of expensive shampoo and childhood joy. "Look at you! You're glowing! Papa bought me new books, and I'm learning piano. And guess what? I got the highest score in my class on the mathematics test." "Of course you did. You're brilliant." Bilal approached more slowly, and Yetunde noticed something different about him too. The grief lines in his face had softened. He stood taller. He smiled more easily. "Good morning, Mama Yetunde," he said warmly. "Good morning, Mr. Okonkwo." "Bilal, please. After everything, I think we're beyond formalities." Yetunde smiled. "Then you must call me Yetunde, or just Mama, like everyone else." They settled at one of the tables outside the stall. Yetunde brought out jollof rice, fried plantain, and chicken, watching with satisfaction as Zainab ate with the healthy appetite of a well-loved child. "The therapy is helping," Bilal said quietly, watching his daughter. "She still has nightmares sometimes, but they're getting less frequent. She's talking about what happened now, processing it." "And the woman? The one who arranged the kidnapping?" Bilal's face hardened. "Blessing Adeyemi. She was my wife's cousin. She'd been stealing from the company for years, and when I discovered it, she knew I'd fire her. She thought if she took Zainab, I'd be too distracted to pursue charges." He paused. "She's in prison now. 25 years. Good. Yetunde said fiercely. She deserves more. She does. But at least she can't hurt anyone else's child. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Zainab play with the other children in the shelter. She was teaching them a clapping game, her laughter ringing out like music. She talks about you constantly, Bilal said, about how you saved her, how you were the first person in 3 years to show her kindness. I just did what any mother would do. No. Bilal turned to look at her directly. Most people wouldn't. Most people would have walked past her every day and never seen her at all. You saw her. You loved her when she was unlovable. You sacrificed everything for a child who wasn't yours. He paused. That's not common. That's extraordinary. Yetunde felt heat rise to her cheeks. I just followed my heart. Your heart is remarkable. Something in his tone made her look up. Their eyes met, and Yetunde saw something there that made her breath catch. Yetunde, Bilal said softly. I've been thinking. Zainab needs stability. She needs a mother figure in her life, someone who understands what she's been through, who she trusts completely. She has you. You're her father. That's what matters most. She has me, yes, but she needs more, and... He hesitated, and for the first time, Yetunde saw uncertainty in this powerful man's face. I need more too. These past 3 months, getting to know you, seeing the way you love not just Zainab, but every child who crosses your path, I've realized something. What? That I don't want you to just be a visitor in our lives. I want you to be part of our family. Permanently. Yetunde's heart began to race. What are you saying? I'm saying that I've fallen in love with you, Yetunde. Not because you saved my daughter, though that's part of it, but because of who you are, your strength, your compassion, your faith, the way you choose kindness even when it costs you everything. He took her hand gently. I want to marry you. I want Zainab to have the mother she deserves. I want us to build a life together. Yetunde stared at him, speechless. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to women like her. You don't have to answer now, Bilal said quickly. I know it's sudden. I know there are complications. The difference in our backgrounds, our social circles, what people will say. Yes, Yetunde whispered. Bilal stopped mid-sentence. What? Yes, I'll marry you. You? You will? Tears streamed down Yetunde's face, but she was smiling. I fell in love with Zainab first, but somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you too, with your devotion to your daughter, with your kindness, with the way you've honored me despite everything. She squeezed his hand. Yes, Bilal, I'll marry you. The joy that transformed his face was like watching the sun rise. Across the courtyard, Zainab looked up and saw them holding hands. Her eyes went wide, and then she squealed with delight. Papa, Mama Yetunde, are you getting married? Bilal laughed. How did you know? Because I've been praying for it every night. Zainab ran over and threw her arms around both of them. I wanted Mama Yetunde to be my real mama. Now she will be. They held each other, this unexpected family, and Yetunde felt a peace she'd never known before. Do you believe that kindness always comes back to us? Do you believe in miracles? Tell us in the comments. The wedding took place 3 months later. It was a grand affair in Lagos, attended by everyone from Bilal's high society friends to the market women from Balogun Street. Yetunde wore a stunning white and gold wrapper that made her look like royalty, and Zainab was her flower girl, beaming with pride. But the most touching moment came during the reception when Bilal stood to make a speech. Many of you know my story, he said, his voice carrying across the hall. 3 years ago, I lost my daughter. I lost everything that mattered. I was a broken man, searching desperately for something I thought I'd never find. He looked at Yetunde, his eyes shining. But God had a plan I couldn't see. He placed my daughter in the path of an extraordinary woman, a woman who had almost nothing but gave everything, a woman who chose love over logic, compassion over comfort, sacrifice over safety. He turned to address the crowd directly. This marriage is not a reward or a transaction. This is love. Real, deep, hard-earned love born from shared struggle and shared purpose. Yetunde didn't save my daughter to trap me. She saved her because that's who she is. A woman who sees children as treasures, not burdens. Who sees people, not social classes. Who loves because it's right, not because it's easy. He took Yetunde's hand. I am the blessed one in this marriage. She has made me a better man, a better father, a better human being. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of her love. The hall erupted in applause. Many people were crying, including some of the society women who'd initially whispered about the food seller who'd trapped a billionaire. They understood now. This wasn't a trap. This was destiny. 6 months after the wedding, Yetunde stood in the garden of their Ikoyi mansion, watching Zainab play with Kemi and the 3 street children they'd recently brought home. "Mama!" Zainab called out. "Come play with us!" Mama. The title that had once been given in fear and desperation was now given in pure love. Yetunde smiled and joined them, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. Bilal appeared on the veranda, home early from work, loosening his tie with a smile. "How's my family?" "Perfect," Yetunde said, and meant it. That evening, after the children were in bed, Yetunde and Bilal sat on the balcony overlooking Lagos, the city lights twinkling like stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Bilal asked. "Everything you went through? The struggle, the sacrifice, the fear?" Yetunde thought about the scared woman she'd been, standing at her food stall, watching a homeless child and making a choice that would change everything. "No," she said softly, "not for a moment, because it led me here, to you, to Zainab, to a life I never dreamed was possible." "You know what I've learned?" Bilal said, pulling her close. "God doesn't always answer our prayers the way we expect. I prayed for my daughter back. He gave her back, yes, but he also gave me you. He turned my tragedy into a love story. He turned my poverty into purpose," Yetunde added. "My struggle into strength." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city that had brought them together, tested them, and ultimately blessed them. Below, in the shelter Yetunde had expanded with Bilal's resources, 15 children slept safely, their bellies full, their futures bright. 3 of them had already been reunited with their families. The others were learning to trust again, to hope again, to dream again, because one woman had chosen to see a homeless child as precious instead of invisible, because one man had never stopped loving his daughter, because kindness, real kindness, always finds its way back to the giver, multiplied beyond measure. 2 years later, Yetunde stood in front of 500 people at a conference on child welfare in Abuja. She was no longer the struggling food seller from Balogun Street. She was Yetunde Okonkwo, founder and director of Zainab's Place, a network of shelters across Lagos that had rescued and rehabilitated over 300 street children. "I was nobody," she told the audience, "just a widow with a food stall, barely surviving. When I saw a hungry child, I had 2 choices, protect my own interests or extend my hand. I chose the hand, and that single choice transformed my entire life." She looked at the front row, where Bilal sat holding Zainab's hand, both of them beaming with pride. "I'm not special," Yetunde continued. "I'm just a woman who believes that every child is someone's daughter, someone's son, someone's precious miracle. And when we treat them that way, when we choose compassion over comfort, miracles happen." She paused, letting her words sink in. "That homeless girl I fed? She was a billionaire's missing daughter. But even if she hadn't been, even if she'd been nobody's daughter but God's, she still would have deserved kindness. She still would have deserved love. That's the lesson. We don't help people because of who they might be. We help them because of who we are." The applause was thunderous. That night, back home in Lagos, Yetunde tucked Zainab into bed. "Mama," Zainab said sleepily, "do you remember the jacaranda tree, where you first gave me food?" "Of course, my darling. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that I have a home, a family, that I'm not alone anymore." Yetunde kissed her forehead. "You're never alone, not ever again. I love you, Mama. I love you too, my precious girl." As Yetunde turned off the light and closed the door, she heard Bilal coming up the stairs. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "You're amazing, you know that?" he murmured. "The way you spoke today, the lives you've changed. I'm in awe of you." "We did it together," Yetunde said. "Your resources, my heart. Our family," Bilal corrected. "Our purpose, our love." They stood there in the hallway, holding each other, 2 broken people who'd found wholeness in the most unexpected way. From tragedy to triumph, from loss to love, from a dusty street corner to a purpose that was changing thousands of lives. All because one woman chose kindness when it cost her everything, and discovered that kindness always, always comes back. Kindness is never wasted. When you help someone in need, you're not just changing their life, you're setting miracles in motion that you cannot yet see. Every act of compassion plants seeds of blessing that will bloom in ways beyond your imagination. True love is built on character, not circumstances. Yetunde and Bilal's marriage wasn't about wealth meeting poverty. It was about 2 good hearts recognizing each other's worth. The children we help today become the future we build tomorrow. Every child deserves to be seen, valued, and loved, not because of their background, but because they are precious. God's timing is perfect. What looks like a crisis may be the beginning of your greatest blessing. Trust the journey, even when you can't see the destination. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. Have you ever helped someone and received an unexpected blessing? Have you ever shown kindness when it cost you everything? Share your stories in the comments. We love hearing from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your location below and let's build this amazing community together. This is Tales by AJ, reminding you that your kindness matters. Every single act of love creates ripples that can change the world. Until next time, keep choosing compassion. Keep choosing love. Keep believing in miracles. God bless you all.